Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm your host, Samantha Studebaker-Carl, broadcasting to you from Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm here with my good friends Lori and Jason and Catherine, and today we're going to continue our discussion of The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. And we are in the hard copy, page 160, the part entitled Milky Way. And but before we get going with this, I'm going to give my friends an opportunity to introduce themselves, and then I'll read some of this. Guys, jump on out.
Hey, Jason here from Tampa Bay, Florida. Great to be here with my friends and everyone, and interested to hearing about the Milky Way.
Good morning, Lori Emmons in Denver here. Glad to be with you all.
Good morning, Catherine Clement here. I won't be reading today, but Samantha's going to read for us.
Yeah, I just had a random thought as I was sitting here wondering if I've got this on Audible. I could have Audible read it, but I don't think I do. Maybe I have it on Kindle. Maybe Alexa would read it for us. That would be interesting.
You don't have an AI robot there?
No, I don't. Okay. That would be nice, right? Okay, let's start. Page 160, Milky Way. I have no idea what happened the last time, so I don't know. I guess when we get into the conversation, if there's something relevant, you guys can bring it up. So, okay. Nora walked onto the stage. At first, she couldn't see the faces because the lights were pointing towards her, and beyond that glare, everything seemed like darkness, except for a mesmerizing Milky Way of camera flashes and foam torches. She could hear them, though. Human beings, when there's enough of them get together, acting in total unison, becomes something else. The collective roar made her think of another kind of animal entirely. It was at first kind of threatening, as if she was Hercules facing the many-headed Hydra who wanted to kill him. But this was a roar of total support, and the power of it gave her a kind of strength. She realized in that moment that she was capable of a lot more than she had known. All right, next section, wild and free. She reached the keyboard, sat down on the stool, and brought the microphone a little closer. Thank you, Sao Paulo, she said. We love you. And Brazil roared back. This, it seemed, was power, the power of fame, like those pop icons she had seen on social media, who could say a single word and get 1 million likes and shares. Total fame was when you reached the point where looking like a hero or genius or God required minimal effort. But the flip side was it was precarious. It could be equally easy to fall and look like a devil or a villain or just an ass. Her heart raced as if she were about to set foot on a tightrope. She could see some of the faces in the crowd now, thousands of them emerging from the dark, tiny and strange, the clothed bodies almost invisible. She was staring out at 20,000 disembodied heads. Her mouth was dry. She could hardly speak, so wondered how she was going to sing. She remembered Dan mock wincing as she'd sung for him. The noise of the crowd subsided. It was time. Right, she said. Here's a song you might have heard before. This was a stupid thing to say, she realized. They had all paid tickets for this concert, presumably because they had heard a lot of these songs before. It is a song that means a lot to me and my brother. Already the place was erupting. They screamed and roared and clapped and chanted. They responded. Their response was phenomenal. She felt momentarily like Cleopatra, an utterly terrified Cleopatra. Adjusting her hands into position for E-flat major, she was momentarily distracted by a tattoo on her weirdly hairless forearm, written in beautifully angled calligraphic letters. It was a quote from Henry David Thoreau. All things are wild and free, or all good things are wild and free. She closed her eyes and vowed not to open them until she had finished the song. She understood why Chopin had liked playing in the dark so much. It was so much easier that way. Wild, she thought to herself, free. As she sang, she felt alive, even more alive than she had felt swimming in her Olympic champion body. She wondered why she had been so scared of this, of singing to a crowd. It was a great feeling. Ravi came over to her at the end of the song while they were still on stage. That was fucking special, man, he shouted in her ear. Oh, good, she said. Now let's kill this and do howl. She shook her head, then spoke into the microphone hurriedly before anyone else had a chance to. Thank you for coming, everybody. I really hope you all had a nice evening. Get home safely. Get home safely? Ravi said in the coach on the way back to the hotel. She hadn't remembered him being such an arse. He seemed unhappy. What's wrong with that? She wondered aloud. Hardly your normal style, wasn't it? Well, a bit of a contrast to Chicago. Why? What did I do in Chicago? Ravi laughed. Have you been lobotomized? She looked at her phone. In this life, she had the latest model, a message from Izzy. It was the same message she'd had in her life with Dan in the pub. Not a message at all, but a photo of a whale. Actually, it might have been a slightly different photo of a whale. That was interesting. Why was she still friends with Izzy in this life and not in her root life? After all, she was pretty sure she wasn't married to Dan in this life. She checked her hand and was relieved to see a totally naked ring finger. Nora supposed it was because she had already been super famous with the Labyrinths before Izzy decided to go to Australia. So Nora's decision not to go may have been more understandable. Or maybe Izzy just liked the idea of a famous friend. Izzy wrote something under the picture of the whale. All good things are wild and free. She must have known about the tattoo. Another message came through for her now. Hope Brazil was a blast. I'm sure you rocked it. And thanks 10 million for sorting out the ticks for Brisbane. I am totally stoked. As we Gold Coasters say. There were a few emojis of whales and hearts and thanking hands and a microphone and some musical notes. Nora checked her Instagram. In this life, she had 11.3 million followers. And bloody hell, she looked amazing. Her naturally black hair had a kind of white stripe in it, vampiric makeup, and a lip piercing. She did look tired, but she supposed that was just the result of living on tour. It was a glamorous kind of tired, like Billie Eilish cool aunt. She took a selfie and saw that while she didn't exactly like the excessively styled and filtered photos on her feed, which had been for magazine shoots, she did look cooler than she ever imagined that she could. As with her Australian life, she also put poems up online. The difference with this life, though, was that each poem had about 500,000 likes. Of the poem, one of the poems even called Fire. Oh, I'm sorry. One of the poems was even called Fire, but it was different from the other one. She had a fire inside her. She wondered if the fire was to warm her or destroy her. Then she realized a fire had no motive. Only she could have that. The power was hers. A woman sat next to her. This woman wasn't in the band, but she exuded importance. She was about 50 years old. Maybe she was the manager. Maybe she worked for the record company. She had an air of strict mum about her, but she began with a smile. Stroke of genius, she said. The Simon and Garfunkel thing. You're trending across South America. Cool. Have posted about it from your accounts. She said this like it was a perfectly normal thing. Oh, right. Okay. There's a couple of last-minute press things tonight at the hotel. Then tomorrow is an early start. We fly to Rio first thing, then 8 hours of press, all at the hotel. Rio? You're up to speed with this week's schedule, aren't you? Kind of. Could you just remind me again? She sighed with good humor, as if Nora, not knowing the tour schedule, was totally in character. Sure. Rio tomorrow, 2 nights, then final night at Brazil, Porto Alegre, then Santiago, Chile, Buenos Aires, then Lima. And that's the last leg of South America. The next week, it's at the start of the Asia leg. Japan, Hong Kong, the Philippines, Taiwan, Peru. We're famous in Peru. Nora, you've been to Peru before, remember? Last year, they went out of their minds, all 15,000 of them. It's at the same place, the race course. The race course, sure, yeah, I remember. Was a good night, really good. That's what this life probably felt like, she realized. One big race course. But she had no idea if she was the horse or the jockey in that analogy. Ravi tapped the woman on the shoulder. Joanna, what time's that podcast tomorrow? Oh, damn. Actually, it's tonight now. Timing. Sorry. Forgot to say. But they only really have to speak to Nora, so you can get an early night if you want. Ravi shrugged, dejected. Sure. Yeah. Joanna sighed. Don't shoot the messenger, though it's never stopped you before. Nora wondered again where her brother was, but the tension between Joanna and Ravi made it feel wrong to ask something she should obviously know. So she stared out the window as the coach drove along the four-lane highway. The glowing taillights of cars and lorries and motorbikes in the dark, like red and watching eyes. Distant skyscrapers with a few tiny squares of light against a humid backdrop of dark sky and darker clouds. A shadowy army of trees lined the sides and middle of the highway, splitting the traffic in two directions. If she was still in this life tomorrow evening, she would be expected to perform an entire concert worth of songs, most of which she didn't actually know. She wondered how quickly she could learn the set list. Her phone rang. A video call. The caller was Ryan. Joanna saw the name and smirked a little. You'd better get that. So she did. Even though she had no idea who this Ryan was, the image on the screen seemed too blurry to recognize. But then he was there, a face she had seen in movies and imaginings many times. Hey, babe, just checking in with a friend. We're still friends, right? She knew the voice, too. American, rugged, charming, famous. She heard Joanna whispering to someone else on the coach. She's on the phone with Ryan Bailey. Do you want to stop there or keep going?
It's up to you.
Maybe
Do you guys
go,
have any thoughts on it so far?
I think maybe go a little bit further.
Okay.
But
Let's see.
is there a good stopping point?
Okay. Get a sip of coffee first.
Very good
All
so
right.
far. Thank
Okay,
you.
cool. Ryan Bailey. Who's Ryan Bailey? You guys know who Ryan Bailey is? Is he famous in this? Is this just a book famous person? I don't even know. I guess we'll find out. Okay. Oh, maybe it says right. Okay, Ryan Bailey, as in the Ryan Bailey, as in Ryan Bailey of her fantasies, where they talked about Plato and Heidegger through a veil of steam in his West Hollywood hot tub. Nora, you there? You look scared. Yeah, I'm I'm here on a bus, a big touring. Yeah, hi. Guess where I am? She had no idea what to say. Hot tub seemed entirely inappropriate as an answer. I honestly don't know. He panned the phone around a vast and opulent looking villa, complete with bright furnishings and terracotta tiles and a four-poster double bed veiled in a mosquito net. Nariet, Mexico. He pronounced Mexico in a parody of Spanish with the X's as an H. He looked and sounded slightly different to the Ryan Bailey in movies. A bit puffier, a bit more slurred, drunker perhaps. On location, they got me shooting Saloon 2. The Last Chance Saloon 2? Oh, I so want to see the first one. He laughed as if she had told the most hilarious joke. Still dry as ever. No. Staying at the Casa de Mita, he went on. Remember the weekend we had there? They've put me in the exact same villa. You remember. I'm having a mezcal margarita in your honor. Where are you? Brazil. We were just doing a concert in Sao Paulo. Wow, same landmass. That's cool. Yeah, cool. It was really good, she said. You're sounding very formal. Nora was aware half of the bus was listening in. Robbie was staring at her as he drank a bottle of beer. I'm just, on the bus. There are people around. People? He sighed, as if it were a swear word. There are always people. That's the fucking problem. But hey, I'm thinking a lot recently about what you said on Jimmy Fallon. Nora tried to act as if every sentence he said wasn't an animal running into the road. What did I say? About how it just ran its course, me and you, how there were no hard feelings. I just want to thank you for saying that because I know I'm a difficult fucking person. I know that. I'm getting work for that. The therapist I'm seeing is really fucking good. That's great. I miss you, Nora. We had great times, but there is more to life than fantastic sex. Yes, said Nora, trying to keep her imagination in check. Absolutely. We had all kinds of great, but you were right to finish it. You did the right thing. In the cosmic order of things, there is no rejection, there is only redirection. I've been thinking a lot about the cosmos. I've been tuning in, and the cosmos has been telling me I need to get my shit together. It's balance, man. What we had was too intense, and our lives are too intense, and it's like Darwin's third law of motion about an action leading to a reaction. Something had to give, and you were the one that saw that. Now that we're just no, and you were the one who saw that, and now we're just particles floating in the universe that may reconnect one day in the Chateau Marmont. She had no idea what to say. I think that was Newton. What? The third law of motion? He tilted his head like a confused dog. What? Never mind. It doesn't matter. He sighed. Anyway, I'm going to finish this margarita because I've got an early training session. Mezcal, you see, not tequila. Got to keep pure. Got this new trainer, this MMA guy. He's intense. Okay. And no, yeah. Can you just call me your special name for me again? Can you just call me your special name for me again? You know the one. Obviously, yeah, of course. She tried to think what it could be. Rye bread, Play-Doh? I can't. People? She made a show of looking around. Exactly, people. And now that we've moved on with our lives, it seems a bit inappropriate. He smiled, a melancholy smile. Listen, I'll be there for the final LA show. Front row, Staples Center. You won't be able to stop me. Got that? That's so sweet. Friends forever? Friends forever. Sensing they were nearing the end of the conversation, Nora suddenly had something to ask. Were you really into philosophy? He burped. It was strange how shocking it was to realize that Ryan Bailey was a human being in a human body that generated gas. What? Philosophy. Years ago, when you were playing Plato in the Athenians, you gave an interview and you said you read a lot of philosophy. I read life, and life is philosophy. Nora had no idea what he meant, but deep down she was proud of this other version of her for dumping an A-list movie star. I think you said at the time you read Martin Heidegger. Who is Martin Hot Dog? Oh, it was probably just press bullshit. You say all sorts of shit. Yeah, of course. Adios, amiga. Adios, Ryan. And then he was gone, and Joanna was smiling at her, saying nothing. There was something teacherly and comforting about Joanna. She imagined that this version of herself liked Joanna. But then she remembered she was supposed to do a podcast on behalf of a band where she didn't know the names of 50% of its members, or the title of their last album, or any of their albums. The coach pulled up at a grand-looking hotel outside of town. Fancy cars with darkened windows, palm trees wrapped in fairy lights, architecture from another planet. A former palace, Joanna told her, designed by top Brazilian architect. I forget his name. She looked up. Oscar Niemeyer, she said after a moment. Modernist, but this is meant to be more opulent than his usual stuff. Best hotel in Brazil. And then Nora saw a small crowd of people holding out their phones with outstretched arms as if beggars with bowls filming her arrival. Then it says, oh, okay. You can have everything and feel nothing. Well, I guess this is she did, because she did some Atnor Labyrinth, and then it says 74.8K retweets, 485.3 likes. Okay. What do you think? Do we have something to talk about? That's the interesting part.
I'm just glad. It's kind of like I feel sometimes going through life. Where am I? What am I supposed to remember? And it'd be hard to be in her situation.
Right. Okay, just making my notes here so I remember where we ended this week. I don't know, this has been a really interesting book, and I like these different little stories of her experiences and how she recognizes things that she likes about whatever these lives are, you know, that she really likes, but then at the same time she's unsure of them, and she also is not sure that's really what she wants. And I don't know if this section is, if she goes out of this life and into another one, or what she does.
I think Ryan was her intended husband that she ran away from the wedding. Is that what you get, Jason?
I don't think so. I think that this Ryan is somebody that is a famous person in her core life that she always fantasized about. And now that she's a famous person in this life, she actually has a relationship with, or had a relationship with him. I think that's what it seems like it's alluding to. I can't remember what her husband was, who she ran. Was Dan the one she was married to at some point, or almost? I can't remember.
Yeah, I think so.
That's what I get for not having a copy of the book.
Yeah.
I have Audible.
On the last section we read, was
okay, yeah, Dan, gotcha. Thanks, Catherine.
She showed up on stage right before the encore, and she was, like a deer in the headlights about
I bet.
what she,
Wait, what am I
what
doing?
song she was supposed to sing and what was going on, and they're all like, okay, encore time, and she's like, oh, and then she chose that Bridge Over Troubled Water song, and they're like,
Right.
what? I'm like, that's not even like the type of
It's not
song
even
they
your
would sing.
song.
Yeah, and because she couldn't remember, she didn't know what songs they were
Right.
singing or playing, so
Mm-hmm.
she picked something that she could remember.
Right. What? Because I think that when she was in the band in her core life, maybe they were like a cover band or whatever, versus writing their own stuff. Or I don't remember. Maybe they haven't really even said exactly what they performed in the lab. Is it the Labyrinth? I think is what they were called.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just yeah, it's kind of eye-opening to think, to be able to step into a completely like different sort of successful life that you could have, um, where you could experience that sort of thing, and that it be um, even better, that she, in comparison, she said, to her being successful as a swimmer. However, both being very successful, and just um, the different lifestyle that that she was having, and how it was affecting her surrounding kind of circle of friends. Um, it's interesting that in a lot of the scenarios, it's all this, similar friends, um, and yet there's just maybe a few different connections that were made, because you'd have to imagine that there's quite a few more, different connections depending on the lifestyle. However, the author's focusing on this one particular sort of aspect of it, you know, her love life, and maybe that's kind of a through um, element of the story is her love life. You know, that maybe that's a big part of maybe one of her regrets. So
Yeah, it could be, or it could
in the
be,
last one, the we found it interesting that the librarian said that she was uh, not always saying what she was actually thinking.
mhm.
Um, that and that was one of her barriers that she puts up, so that um, anyway, that was just another interesting aspect of the last reading, but it goes, you know, it's part of the same scene. It seemed like so.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. I think that like this whole concept of being surrounded by the same people in one way or another from life to life. I can't, I wonder, if we talk reincarnation, or, like that one book that we read where we planned our life before we come into it with, certain people that we typically have these adventures with, and we choose different roles and whatnot, is, that we just have these core souls that we're always running around with throughout eternity. We just do different things, do different adventures together or whatever. And that's kind of I guess it kind of falls along that same lines, if you will, is um, rather than looking at this as a reincarnation kind of a situation, it's this library where she goes between life and death, and then she gets to try on these different lives, but still very, a lot of similar things in it, in terms of like the people and her feelings about certain things and whatnot. And yet every time she goes in, she comes to some new realization about herself, or she sees something, or she gets to see her own self from a different perspective. And I think it would be really interesting if we could figure out how to see ourselves from a different perspective in any given day. How it is, it's like you can see other people and you can see their problems like it's just written right on their face, and you can see what they ought to do in order to fix it. But yet for ourselves, we can't see it. It's like we're blind to a lot of the issues that we struggle with. And it would be interesting if we could just see ourselves from a different perspective in order to open ourselves up to other options that we don't even realize are available to us. Or we tend to kind of get this like tunnel vision in our lives, just like Nora. In her core life, she was caught in this self-pity and depression, and she couldn't see any other possibilities for herself. But yet we can look at her and be like, what's the big deal? You're single, you just have an apartment, yeah, you have a job, but you're not stuck there. You can go somewhere else, you can try something else, you can whatever else, and it's not that big of a deal. And yet we everything that we experience for ourselves, like in any given moment, is like a major deal. It's the deal at the time. And but yet at the same time, I can also look back on my life and be like, we've done so many different things over the last 30 years. It's sometimes mind-boggling to think of all the different things that we have done, and we've not just been doing the same life for 30 years. It's been different lives. I feel like we've literally lived different lives every time some big thing happens. And I make, or not really make a joke, but I sometimes refer to those things in my past as a previous life. It's like when I was in my previous life, when I was a pet groomer, or whatever. My previous life when my kids were little, or when we lived in Georgia, or when we, because every time that we've made some big change, it always felt just huge. Just the enormity of all of it. And then yet I can look back at each of those things that seemed like a big deal at the time. And I'm like, it really wasn't that big of a deal. It was just seemingly overwhelming in the given moment because I was just so caught up in it. And, it's interesting also how I can look back on my life at those different life situations and everything looks clear. I can see the obvious issues, but when I'm in the middle of it, I can't see it as well. I feel like it'd be nice to just be able to step outside myself and look in from a more distant observer position to really see some of the dynamics of my own MOs and adjust accordingly, I guess. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I have been impressed with how easily Nora skates through, like she didn't have to come up with his nickname that she always had for him that she just don't remember. Well, I wouldn't remember either, but it just kind of shows that hindsight really is 2020. When we're looking at it, I can't even see it.
I know that since doing these live webinars with you all, I've really started to do a lot more of reframing of situations and looking at things from a different perspective. And you start with like the past and like, well, maybe I could look at that differently. But now I've been recently, I mean, maybe for years now, we've been doing this so long, but been doing it in the moment. How can I look at this right now differently to come at it from a better position or better angle or more positive position, or make the most out of it. You get, and sometimes, like, when it's a difficult decision to make, or just a decision that somehow you feel like, okay, this could go really well, or this could go really sideways real quick. What am I, and the thought comes to my mind, what am I supposed to do? Like, what as if I'm outside myself, looking in from a different like, it's already happened. What was I supposed to be doing so that I go in the right direction? It's it's not like an answer pops into my head or anything, but sometimes it sort of gives me that, um, stalls me for a moment, so that maybe, um, like you said, those emotions get to flow and away, and maybe just give me a little bit more time to get to that clarity, and maybe make a better decision in the moment.
Yeah, for me, it's a matter of really paying attention and taking a minute to breathe before I respond, so that I don't respond with an old habitual patterning or something, and learning to rewrite my story or whatever, that it doesn't have to be that way when it seems so eminent that it is going to be how it has always been or something. Rewriting the story, changing my responses. So that would be more like responding rather than reacting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I was also thinking, oh, Catherine made a comment. It's often helpful to ask your future self how you got through a situation. Yeah, for sure. I think that's a
Yeah.
huge thing, and when When Chris and I made a big change from before we went to Georgia, when we decided we were going to be full-time RVers, that was a big, huge leap of faith, if you will. And I was reminding myself, because at first we were like, do we really want to do this? Is this, what is going to happen? What are how it is, you go into this kind of doom and gloom attitude of, what are all the repercussions of me making this crazy choice, or what might seem crazy to someone from the outside who doesn't understand, and the same time, we had these conversations. I told him, I'm like, we have survived this, all these different things up until that point, because by then we survived a couple of foreclosures, a car repo, the our business crashing. I mean, all of these different things. And and I'm not saying that by survive them we ended up with on top, but we survived them, as in, we were still healthy, we still were capable, we still were able to do whatever we wanted to do in terms of work or whatever. And and we didn't end up in detrimental deep depression over it. I mean, we had our struggles and we had our things, and well, another thing is we survived almost getting divorced, things like that. And I'm like, and the whole time we survived all those things, and our goal had been to just make ends meet, right? We didn't have like any I mean, with the business, obviously we wanted to be surviving this as a business or whatever, but I want to say that we were just living life and getting by, doing the what you're supposed to do. You have your house and you pay your bills and you this and that and the other, and and our failings, if you were the fact that we couldn't make all that work, but we survived it. And when we went into the idea of going full-time RVing, it was like a whole different choice of reasoning of doing that. Is that we did it because we wanted to have more enjoyment in life, rather than we wanted to kind of flip the thing where we were basically living to work for all so much time, and we wanted to flip it over to just work to so that we could live, however you want to look at that. We wanted to have our adventures, we wanted to have a more interesting and enjoyable life. And kind of my point was with that was that we survived everything working on the one path of what we think we should do, and we came out okay. So how about let's work on what we want to do, and know that whatever happens, we're still going to come out okay. Sorry for that kind of roundabout, I got distracted by the kids outside, explanation, but it was basically just kind of boils down to, no matter what, we're going to be okay, so we may as well work on something we want to work on versus working on all this mumbo jumbo we think we should work on. So that's my thought there.
Interesting. It's like all paths come around to what you believe is going to be the outcome. It's just recognizing that you can choose a different path, kind of a thing too. It's like, I was just, as you're reading, or as you're speaking, it came to my mind about how much of our focus and our belief as we're doing things brings about exactly what we are thinking about. If we're like, oh, we're just, well, let's make sure we make ends meet, and and that's what you end up. You look back and you go, well, we made ends meet. But what if we had focused on, well, let's be amazingly successful and get everything we always want. If that was a focus, would you be able to look back and go, gosh, I got everything I want and everything was amazingly successful? Is it that? Could it be that simple of switching our focus and our belief level Um, it's, who knows? I mean, maybe some things.
To hear, to hear a lot of people talk, it is that easy. You just change your thought processes and your mindset, and it's going to be miraculous. And I just haven't experienced that. I just don't know what it'd be like to go from being a rock star to being glaciologist. It's two totally different aspects. And I don't know, can it just be a matter of mindset change?
Yeah, but that is two totally different goals too, right? But I mean, it's like, what is your, for me, maybe being a glaciologist doesn't sound too appealing, but if for her, it's right up there with being a rock star, I mean, that can also be considered exceptional success if that's, to me, if it's right up there with like being a rock star. But other people might not think, oh, being a rock star, that's got to be really hectic and not, and everyone's probably so superficial, and you don't, it kind of depends again how you're looking at it.
I think it's also digging down to, what you ultimately want from any given experience. So if we're comparing rock star to glaciologist or swimmer, whichever thing, is it like, is the goal just to be a glaciologist, or is the goal just to be a rock star or a swimmer or whatever? Because obviously those things are achievable, but why do you want that? What is it you hope to get out of that? And is it just, is it financial gain? Is it accumulating of stuff? Is it a feeling of importance? Is it, um, or is it just that you want to be happy and you think that doing this thing or being this person is going to make you happy? Because, I mean, I've learned over the years that a lot of times we do things because we think that's either A, what we're supposed to do, or B, that thing or accumulation of is going to make us happy. And for myself at least, is that when I just focus on being happy, a lot of times it doesn't even matter what I'm doing or not doing, or accumulating or not accumulating, or accomplishing or not accomplishing, because ultimately I'm bypassing all the mumbo jumbo and I'm just being happy. Because in all the different lifestyles that we've had up until this point, I could always be happy. It's just a lot of times I chose not to be because of all this limiting mumbo jumbo I had in my head that was like, well, we can't enjoy ourselves until, or we can't be happy until, or we can't experience blah, 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 unless, there's all of those kinds of things. And I'm literally blocking myself from experiencing the thing that I ultimately want, which is to be happy, and, I mean, even when I find myself, I don't know, depressed about this or that or whatever, I realize that I'm not focusing on being happy in the moment. I'm focusing on the things that I think are a problem, whatever it happens to be. And when I focus on just simply being happy and knowing that and trusting that I can handle whatever comes up, then I can be happy even when shit's hitting the fan, I mean, and that's a big mindset shift, I feel like, because we think that we can't experience a positive life or happiness in our lives if things aren't going the way we have written down it's supposed to go. So
I want to know who this entity or whatever is that decides what it's supposed to be. Where you start up, you're supposed to go to school and get a good education and get a good job and then get all this stuff. And then it comes down to being older and retiring and getting rid of stuff. And, it's more about what we're doing instead of how we're being. And I've had enough in my life that I should be in a mental institution or something and be all depressed and disappointed. But just in the moment, in the now, got to be right now how I am, a human being, not a human doing, and be happy with that. And can't let it get you all depressed and neurotic. I don't know. I don't have the answer.
Yeah, there's a lot of outside influences with, either as we were growing up or just people in general. There's so many people that think that you have to have or accomplish or have so much money or how so much stuff or whatever. And if you haven't done that, then you're less than, and I feel like we have that in our culture as kind of an underlying, I don't know what the word is for that, but just an underlying thing that pushes us to think that we need to have more, whatever it is, more or have something, or that something is better than something else. I mean, for instance, if we're talking about, a person working in a fast food restaurant versus a person working in a car dealership versus a person working in an HR department, we have these weird underlying things of cultural biases or whatever, where we think that the fast food person is living a lesser life than a person who's making, who's a $1 million salesperson or whatever. And yet, I mean, we can look at people across the world and see happy people that basically are just living with nearly nothing, and we see happy people that have everything. But when we also see the exact opposite, we see people who have absolutely nothing, who are miserable as shit, and people that have millions of dollars that are miserable. I it doesn't have anything to do with the stuff or accomplishments. It has to do with what we're focused on and what we believe about ourselves and what we believe about other people believing about us too, because that's a big aspect of it too. I mean, if we have accomplished X amount of stuff and yet we have somebody in our life who still makes us feel like they're looking down on us, then it doesn't matter whatever. I mean, we're focused on this person feeling that we're less than, and so then we see ourselves as less than, and yet then you can also be whatever you are, not worry about what anybody else thinks, and focus on being happy in what you're doing and be happy. And so it's all a matter of what do we really want. What core thing do we want to experience in life, regardless of how we do things or how we pay our bills or how much stuff we get or whatever, and focus on being that feeling that we want to be, and then allow ourselves just to trust that we can, sure, we can maybe get a job that we wouldn't have otherwise thought would be the right job for us, because obviously we still have to pay the bills or whatever, but the job is not important. It's the being happy regardless of what is going on, and knowing that ultimately, if we feel like we want to pursue a particular profession or get a certain thing or whatever, sure, that's a thing or a profession, but ultimately we can be what we actually want before, after, or during accumulating or accomplishing the things. So that's my thought.
But then that polar bear shows up in your face, about to eat you.
Yeah, shit hits the fan sometimes. I can tell you that this year with our company, shit has been hitting the fan left and right, and I could sit here and say that, I could be upset and worried and stressed and everything else. And although I do have stressors and I do worry a little bit, I also am just like trusting that we can overcome it. We can, it doesn't matter. Just focus on enjoying what you're doing and focus on being happy in the moment. And, all the other shit is just shit, I mean, really, it really is. And, if shit falls apart completely, then we'll regroup and do something different. I mean, it's not end of the world. We always make everything out to be such a big deal. Like it is literally the end of the world if your power gets shut off or something. I mean, I know that sounds like a silly thing, and that could be pretty detrimental if your power gets shut off in the middle of the dead of winter. But, at the same time, you regroup, you figure it out, and you get it turned back on again or whatever, or you regroup and you go, okay, well, this situation is not working. We've got to change. We've got to do something different. And I think the problem is a lot of times we're not willing to let go of the thing that we've been doing because we're like, we gotta have this or we gotta have that, or I have to be this or I have to be that. And if it doesn't work out, then I beat myself up because it didn't work out. And I feel like everybody's looking down on me because it didn't work out, or, any of those things, versus just going, that shit didn't work. That's all right. I'll do something different. I can try another thing. I can regroup. I can, I mean, trust me, you can rebuild. you can do it again, do something different. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's
Sure.
not as big of a deal as we all make it out to be. It really isn't. And it's just hard to see that when you're in the midst of hellfire raining down. I mean, obviously, if you were literally being attacked by a polar bear, although, she stood up and just screamed at it, and then, just got strong within herself and was like, okay, came to this realization that, okay, shit is happening right now. I'm facing it and I'm being strong, and whatever happens, happens. And I trust that whatever that equals out to is what's supposed to happen, I guess. I don't know. I mean, ultimately, she did kind of come to that realization that, that was a scary, scary thing, but she survived it. I mean, she didn't get the crap eaten out of her, luckily. But I guess if she had been, then she'd have faced that, whatever that ended up being, whether it was a loss of limb or any number of things, or loss of her life. I mean, if we think we have other lives to live in reincarnation or just transporting to another dimension, who knows? I mean, I don't know. It's all good. I like to say that. It's all good. It's all just sometimes things seem like they suck because shit's literally hitting the fan, or well, okay, not literally, we'll say figuratively, right? We're grammatical, whatever, but when shit feels like it's hitting the fan,
I guess it comes back to the mindset and
yeah,
the belief that you have that
mm-hmm.
it's all going to work out somehow.
Yeah, whatever that equals out to, because it doesn't always work out how we do what?
It's going to equal out to extraordinary success. That's how I look.
Yeah. And whatever that means to you, what does success mean to you individually, and success for me just means being happy and enjoying my life, so
right.
We have to define what is success and how can I be successful in any given moment of my life so that I can experience that success now versus putting it off until blank achievement, or whatever, I can't do it unless.
Yeah, it's it's just fascinating to me. It seems like how much our thinking, our thought process can sort of open up the stream or the life path for us to go down that road, that um, whichever it might be. Our thoughts have that much power that you have a thought and then you keep that thought in your mind, and then that helps to dictate your decisions going forward and steers you in the direction of that thought, like whether it's all things working out for you, or it's, well, we're gonna just get by no matter what happens. It's just gonna get by. It's like I wonder, it's like the universe is listening and going, okay, well, let's allow you to prove that to yourself. It's like, well, if your focus is on, well, if the shit hits the fan, we'll find a way to get through it. Like, okay, well, he needs the shit to hit the fan so that he can then find his way through it. That's what he wants. So is that what I'm putting in front of myself? Or, just by you think, well, hey, I'm kind of hedging my bet. I'm kind of hedging myself, or maybe comforting myself to think I could get through anything. But am I actually telling the universe that I want that to be my path? Like, almost like how you were saying, if we were focusing on the problems because we're solution finders, so that if we're if we think we're good at solving a solution or providing solutions all the time, then we get really good at always seeing the problems, and then that's what that's what we tend to see mostly. So and then we're wondering why. Well, why can't I why isn't it so easy to focus on all the great aspects of things? But and at the same time, like when you're expecting those things, and you're putting that value on those different things, because you're like, hey, if I can just get by, then if I can always make ends meet, hey, then we'll be all right, because I'll have my family, and we're always making ends meet. So, and family is more important to me. For me, that's, family is really a big thing. So I think, hey, if you can, that's better than being, a bazillionaire and not having, any friends or family. For sure, right? I mean, I think life is about having, great relationships and stuff like that. So that's really, important to you. But if at the same time I'm saying, well, even if all that doesn't work out, I'll stick by, and I'll find a way to be happy, then maybe the universe is saying, okay, he needs that not to work out so he can prove to himself that he can find a way to be happy. It's like, are we almost shooting ourselves in the foot sometimes by not purely thinking about actually what we want and actually the success we want? Kind of like where the librarian was saying, um when Nora said something to the librarian, and she's like, that's not really what you think. And she's like, yes, it is, because that's what I just said. And she's like, no, you often don't say things that you actually think, and that's a barrier. I said, do we do that to ourselves? I wonder sometimes.
Could be. I know that when I focus on doom and gloom, it eventually tends to kind of come back around and kick me in the ass. You know?
Yeah, but
Uh,
you always come out on top. So how, you could maybe do a straight path to the
well, we were
the
talking.
peak.
What it wasn't in this. It wasn't in this book. It was the book before, where what the heck was that book called that we did last, that was talking about we put these limiting beliefs on ourselves about what's possible, and we're the ones that kind of put the ceiling in place, and we don't believe that we can go beyond the ceiling, or we have this idea that there's always going to be ups and downs, but maybe that is just a belief, and that it doesn't have to be ups and downs. It can just be a continuous, positive upswing. And that was a big
Yeah.
light bulb moment for me, you know, because throughout my life, it has seemed like it's always there's a roller coaster, we get a pretty good, situation going on, and then all of a sudden shit hits the fan, and then we crash, and then we're like, oh, but we can recover. So then we start recovering again, then we get to a certain point, and then we crash. And the idea that that cyclical nature of existence maybe is only cyclical because we believe that it's so was a yeah, just a isn't that interesting? Maybe I am literally causing that within my own existence because I believe that that's how the universe works, rather than believing in the continuous expansion of the universe as, because I mean, if the universe is technically continuously expanding, why couldn't I just continue to go up as if there was no ceiling in whatever aspect of life, and for us, more often than not, it's financial, success, financial, positive. And I will say, I mean, this time in our lives is better than any other financial situation we've been in before, as far as the ups go. And but I can also say, I go through these times in my life where I feel stressed and worried about the shit hitting the fan, literally, and I shake myself out of it because I'm like, quit doing that, because you're gonna draw it back in again, And but when we read that book the last time, I was like, I need to let go of that idea entirely and start focusing on that there is no ceiling, of that it just is, that ceiling is an illusion that I've created within my own life. And it's like you said, if we believe that, or we need to face the obstacles in order to feel the achievement of overcoming them, then we'll create those obstacles in our life. But what if we believe that there are no obstacles or downsides? What if we believe it's just straight up all the way, and we can just keep on going, and that the challenges are simply you know higher steps to climb, or whatever, versus a downfall per se. So
I think it's to keep the excitement in life, because if it was just a straight, steady course, it would get kind of boring, I think. It'd be Groundhog Day all over again, Oh, I'm doing this again.
well, maybe we just need to, instead of creating downswing, though, is just create a new and different upswing. I don't know.
Well,
it's getting boring. I'm not going to destroy it. I'm just going to do something additional going,
I don't know about you, but my roller coaster has those loops in it that it's like, where am I at? What am I doing? Just all of a sudden I'm upside down and going a different way. I guess it's getting late. I will see you guys next week.
Okay.
Yeah, I need to jump off too, because I'm actually supposed to be watching the grandchildren right now, but they're out in the driveway with partial supervision from the men. So not that they aren't good supervisors, but they're busy. So,
Oh, well, everybody have a straight up weekend, rest of the weekend, and a fantastic week.
Yeah. Catherine, I hope you get your voice back and that you're feeling better.
Yeah.
You know what to do.
Get those toxins out of there.
Uh-huh. Exactly. Put a little essential oils in your wanded water. Just gargle that. There you go. Yeah, yeah. All right. Guys, I love you guys so much, and I enjoy talking about this stuff. And for those of you who are watching this, if you'd like to join us, we'd love to have you. You can find us on Facebook, look for Mindset Mastery Collective, or just go down below this video because it's going to be on YouTube, and you can find a link to get into our Facebook group. And the pinned post in the group has the link to join our Zoom meeting every week. We get together generally at 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific, and have these conversations, do the recording, and then we post them later. So with that, have a great, awesome, amazing week. And we'll see you next time on the Saturday Morning Mastermind. Bye for now.